Welcome, dear dreamers, to another night with Whispers of the Night. I'm so glad you're here. Before we begin tonight's journey, take a moment to settle into your space. Perhaps dim the lights. Let your body sink comfortably into your bed, and allow your mind to wander softly. Feel the surface beneath you, supporting your weight. Notice how your body is held gently, as though the world itself is cradling you. Allow your hands to rest loosely by your sides, your legs soft and relaxed. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it out, letting go of tension with each exhale. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and pressing the bell so you never miss a moment of calm and wonder, a gentle escape into stories that soothe your heart and mind. Each night here is a chance to step away from the day, to let your thoughts slow, to wander into worlds that whisper softly to your imagination. Tonight, we travel together through a story that invites relaxation, reflection, and a gentle sense of wonder, a story called The Student Who Drew Forgetting. Imagine the soft glow of a lamp, the rustle of pages, the quiet of a room where dreams feel close, just within reach. Breathe deeply once more, and as you exhale, release the day's worries. Let your senses prepare for this gentle adventure, a journey in the quiet of the night. Every sound, every shadow, every soft movement around you will guide you toward calm and comfort, ready to drift into a world of imagination and peace. Now, dear dreamer, take a slow, deep breath in and let it out, feeling your body soften with each exhale. Notice how your body is supported by the surface beneath you. Your shoulders relax, your arms rest comfortably at your sides, your legs stretched or tucked as feels most soothing. Let your jaw soften, your brow smooth, and your entire body sink deeper into comfort. Imagine a soft, warm light surrounding you, gentle and golden, filling the room with calm. It's safe here. You are safe. Each small movement of your chest as you breathe carries a sense of quiet and ease. Picture a small desk nearby, a sketchbook open, pencils scattered softly. Perhaps the faint scent of paper and graphite drifts through the air. With each breath, you feel more present, more aware of this quiet, magical space that belongs only to you. As your mind begins to slow, allow thoughts of the day to drift away, like leaves floating gently on a quiet stream. There is no rush, no pressure. Everything that happened today can rest. You are allowed to let go. Imagine your fingers brushing softly over the paper, tracing lines, forming shapes, drawing your worries away, leaving only calm and gentle wonder. Each stroke of the pencil is a whisper, a release, a reminder that the night is here to cradle you. Listen to the quiet around you, perhaps the faint rustle of fabric, the gentle creak of the floor, or the soft hum of the night outside the window. Each sound is a lullaby, a rhythm guiding your thoughts into calm, your body into stillness. With every inhale, invite peace. With every exhale, let go of tension. Feel your mind slowing, your body sinking deeper. Your eyes feel heavier, your limbs softer, your chest rising and falling in a gentle, even rhythm. Imagine a soft glow of starlight entering the room through the window, delicate and shimmering, dust motes dancing like tiny sparks of magic. Let your imagination drift among these lights, letting your mind wander freely, safely, gently. Allow yourself to feel a sense of floating light, calm, peaceful, as if you are drifting slowly on a quiet lake, each ripple carrying away all remaining tension. Your thoughts become soft, your breathing even, your body completely at ease. And now, dear dreamer, simply rest. Let the story of the student who drew forgetting unfold gently in your mind. Each page, each sketch, guiding you softly, steadily into a night of calm, restful sleep. The student who drew forgetting, the quiet sketch, the rain had been falling since morning, not in heavy sheets, but in that soft, whispering way that made the whole world sound half asleep. The windows of room 23, the art classroom at the end of the corridor, were filled with mist. Brushes lay in jam jars. The air smelled faintly of paint and old paper, and the hum of the overhead lights seemed to keep time with the gentle tapping of raindrops. Against glass dot, at the far desk, sat Mr. Halen, a man whose voice was soft even when he was angry, though he rarely ever was. He was the kind of teacher who treated silence not as a problem to fix, but as something sacred. His students adored him for that, or at least they respected him quietly, the kind of respect that blooms only in rooms where no one feels watched too closely. He was grading sketches when he first noticed her, the girl near the window, Eliya. She was always there, choosing that same seat, her back to the storm, her face tilted slightly toward the pale light. She hardly ever spoke. She never raised her hand or called for help, but she drew constantly. The sound of her pencil was a small, steady heartbeat in the stillness of the room. Mr. Halen had seen hundreds of students pass through his class, loud, restless, careless, but Eliya was different. She didn't draw for praise or grades. Her sketches had that strange, aching honesty that only comes when someone draws to breathe. That morning, she was sketching another student, Nira, a girl known for her sudden tears and sharp laughter. Nira had come in, upset, red-eyed, muttering that her best friend had betrayed her. She sat hunched over her paper, pretending to work. The whole class had felt the heaviness of it, like a ripple in otherwise calm water. And then Halen noticed Eliya's page. She had drawn Nira perfectly, the bowed head, the trembling hands, but the expression was different. The anger was gone. In the drawing, Nira looked peaceful, like someone who had already forgiven. The graphite lines were light, soft, almost shimmering where the lamplight hit them. Halen didn't say anything. He only watched from his desk. As Eliya reached for her eraser and gently began to soften one corner of the drawing, the tear beneath Nira's eye erased in one slow stroke. At that exact moment, Nira looked up from her paper, blinked as if waking from a dream, and gave a small, puzzled laugh. "Weird," she said under her breath. "I can't even remember why I was mad. No one else seemed to notice, but Mr. Halen froze. He wasn't superstitious. He didn't believe in curses or miracles, but he believed in moments, the rare kind where something invisible shifts, and the air itself feels charged with meaning. And something had shifted. He let the class continue. The rain thickened against the windows. When the bell rang, chairs scraped, shoes squeaked, and one by one the students left, chattering in the hallways like birds freed from a cage. Eliya stayed behind, as she often did. She cleaned her brushes, stacked her sketchbook, and lingered, as if reluctant to leave the cocoon of quiet. "Eliya," Halen said finally, his tone gentle, almost hesitant. She looked up, her dark hair falling over one shoulder. "Yes, sir." He smiled faintly. "That drawing? May I see it?" She hesitated, a flicker of something, maybe fear or caution, but she brought it to him. The paper was delicate, worn slightly at the edges. The drawing itself was beautiful, but what struck him wasn't the skill, it was the feeling. It was alive. The graphite shading carried emotion like it carried light. It wasn't a copy of reality. It was reality, softened and purified. "You draw feelings," Halen murmured, tracing the air above the page. "I draw what I see," she said quietly. He looked up, meeting her gaze. "And what did you see today?" Her lips parted, then closed again. She shrugged lightly, eyes drifting toward the misted window. "Sadness," she said, "but I didn't like it, so I took it away." He frowned gently. "You mean in the drawing?" She nodded. "In the drawing." Her tone was so calm, so matter-of-fact, that he didn't know what to say next. He only smiled, handed the paper back, and said, "It's beautiful work." Eliya smiled too, but it wasn't a smile of pride. It was distant, like someone remembering a story that once hurt. She slipped the paper into her sketchbook and left quietly, her footsteps fading down the hall. That night, Halen couldn't stop thinking about it. He told himself it was nothing, that Nira had simply forgotten her anger, as children often do. But in the quiet of his small apartment, he found himself replaying the image of the eraser brushing over the tear, the sound of the pencil's scratch slowing to stillness, and the timing of Nira's sudden calm. He poured himself tea, turned on the lamp, and stared at the rain through his window. The city lights shimmered through it, bending like memory. What did she mean? He whispered to no one. She took it away. He had always believed that art revealed truth, not that it could erase it. The next morning, when he entered the classroom, Eliya was already there. She was drawing again, a small landscape, this time, a park, maybe, a swing swaying gently in wind. He tried to shake off the unease. "You're early," he said. "I like the quiet before the others come," she replied. There was something in her voice, soft but weighted, like she had lived 100 quiet mornings before this one. He approached her desk, standing just behind her shoulder. "You draw fast," he observed. She smiled faintly. "Only when I remember clearly." He tilted his head. "And if you don't, then I erase," she said simply, "and start over." Her pencil paused. She turned a page in her sketchbook. On the previous sheet, faint eraser marks ghosted the surface outlines of faces, hands, eyes, all rubbed, nearly invisible. It was unsettling, like looking at a half-forgotten dream. Something about it made him shiver. He was about to speak when the bell rang, and students flooded in laughter, noise, motion scattering the quiet like startled birds. Halen stepped back, retreating to his desk, forcing himself to focus on attendance, assignments, order. But every few minutes, his eyes drifted back to her. She was still drawing, always drawing. And the strange thing was, every time she sketched something, the energy in the room changed. When she drew laughter, people smiled without knowing why. When she sketched a lonely figure, a hush would fall over the class. And when she erased something, anything, a faint breeze seemed to pass through. And someone, somewhere in the room, would pause, frown, and say, "I can't remember what I was just thinking." By the end of the day, Halen's heartbeat had joined the rhythm of her pencil. It was absurd, and yet he couldn't deny it anymore. Something in her art did something. After class, he found himself lingering as the students left. Eliya, as always, was the last. She placed her brushes carefully into a tin, closed her sketchbook, and gave him a small nod before leaving. He should have stopped her. He wanted to ask how, why, but some instinct told him that pressing her might break the fragile trust forming between them, so he let her go. He stayed in the room long after sunset. The janitor had turned off most of the hallway lights. Only the soft lamp near his desk remained, casting gold over the tables and canvases. He sat there, staring at the empty seat by the window. The faint impression of her pencil strokes was still visible on the desk's surface, thin, delicate lines that caught the light. He reached out, brushed his fingers across them. They felt warm, as if the graphite still held a trace of her touch. And for a moment, he swore he heard something, the faintest sound, like a sigh, or the soft hush of an eraser against paper. Later, as he locked up the classroom, he noticed something lying under one of the desks, a torn scrap of sketch paper. He picked it up. It showed half a face, a single eye, open wide, drawn with impossible tenderness. But where the rest of the face should have been, the paper was rubbed pale, nearly blank. Only one line of writing remained beneath it. In soft graphite letters, "Some things are lighter when forgotten." Halen stood there for a long time, the echo of rain outside mixing with the whisper of those words. He didn't know what frightened him more, the idea that the girl might be right, or that she might already be erasing herself. What the eraser takes. It was a gray morning again, washed in thin light. The school's corridors echoed with the sound of distant chatter, but room 23 remained its own quiet world. Inside, the air smelled faintly of turpentine and wet paper. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still hung low, as though the sky hadn't quite made up its mind about the day. Mr. Halen arrived earlier than usual. He didn't know why, only that something in him had begun to move to Eliya's rhythm. He wanted to be there before she came, to see what her presence changed. He placed his satchel down, lit the desk lamp, and stared at the empty room. It was absurd, the way he now looked for traces of her. The faint smell of pencil shavings, a few graphite smudges on the desk, a ghost of a drawing left behind. And then, at precisely 7:46, she entered, quietly, as always. Her hair was damp from the fog outside. her sketchbook pressed against her chest. "Good morning, Mr. Meyer," she said softly. Her voice carried the gentleness of someone used to speaking into silence. "Good morning, Eliya," he replied. She moved to her usual spot by the window and opened her sketchbook. The first stroke of her pencil cut through the stillness, faint, steady, like a breath drawn into paper. Halen hesitated before speaking. "May I ask what you're drawing today?" Eliya didn't look up. Something that shouldn't be remembered. He felt his pulse quicken. And what would that be? Her hand paused midline. "You wouldn't want to see it." He let the silence hold, watching the slight tremor in her wrist. There was something fragile about the way she drew, as if every line cost her a piece of herself. When the bell rang, the rest of the class poured in, their voices instantly filling the air. Eliya's shoulders tensed slightly, but she didn't stop. Halen went through his usual motions, attendance, brief instructions, yet his mind remained tethered to the girl by the window. He watched her as she drew, and slowly he began to notice something uncanny. Each time she erased a mark, someone in the room would falter, a word forgotten mid-sentence, a small detail lost. A girl searching her bag would stop, frown, and say, "I swear I brought it." A boy writing his name on his paper would pause, staring at the half-finished letters as though they no longer looked right. Tiny harmless on their own, but together they made the room feel unmoored, as if reality itself were quietly fraying at its edges. And through it all, Eliya remained still, calm, her eraser gliding in slow, deliberate motions. That evening, after class had ended, Halen finally asked her to stay behind. He waited until the last chair was pushed in, until the hallway was quiet. Then he spoke. "Eliya," he said, his voice careful, as though speaking to something delicate. "Tell me honestly, do you notice anything unusual about your drawings?" Her gaze flicked toward him, unreadable, unusual. "You erase things," he said, "and sometimes people forget right after." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she closed her sketchbook, her fingers tightening on its cover. "I don't make them forget," she said softly. "They choose to." He frowned. "Choose to. When I erase something," she continued, "it's only because someone wants it gone. Their mind lets go first. I just help it finish." Her voice trembled at the edges, like someone repeating a truth too heavy to carry. Halen leaned forward. "And who helps you forget, Eliya?" She looked up sharply, and for the first time, he saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of him, but of memory itself. "Nobody," she whispered. "That's the problem." That night, he dreamed of chalk dust floating through air, like snow, weightless, falling onto open pages. He dreamed of sketches vanishing in slow, graceful motions, leaving behind empty paper and a deep, aching calm. When he woke, the world felt thinner somehow, as if part of it had been gently rubbed away. The next day, he decided to test something. During class, he asked the students to pair up and sketch each other. He walked around the room, pretending to check on everyone until he reached Eliya. "Try something different," he said quietly. "Draw me." She blinked. "Yes," he said, smiling faintly. "Let's see how you see me." She hesitated, but nodded. He returned to his desk, feeling oddly nervous. For 10 minutes, there was only the sound of pencils scratching. Then Eliya stopped, lifted her drawing slightly, and looked at it, frowning. He walked over. "May I?" She nodded. The portrait was perfect, too perfect. His features, his tired eyes, even the small crease near his temple. But there was something wrong about it, something hollow. He didn't know what until she reached for the eraser. "Don't," he said instinctively. But she had already begun. Her eraser brushed the lines around his mouth, faint, careful strokes. And as she did, a strange sensation spread through him. He blinked, confused, and then realized he couldn't remember what he had been about to say. The room tilted slightly, sound receding to a low hum. He stepped back. "Eliya, what did you just do?" Her expression was unreadable. "You looked sad," she murmured, "so I took it away." He raised a hand to his face, his heartbeat thudding in his ears. He didn't feel sad anymore, but he also couldn't recall why he ever had been. It was like a whole, clean, silent, painless. He set the paper down, staring at it as though it might explain something, but it didn't. It only looked back at him, his face now slightly altered, a faint smile where none had been before. After class, he followed her outside. The sky had cleared, and the afternoon light made everything look washed clean. The courtyard was empty, except for the soft rustle of wind through trees. "Eliya," he called gently. She turned. Clutching her sketchbook close, he hesitated, then asked, "Does it ever hurt you, what you do?" Her eyes softened. "Only when I try to erase too much." He waited. "When you take away something big," she continued quietly, "it doesn't disappear. It goes somewhere. Into you. Into your hands. Your eyes. It stays until you find a way to draw again." She looked at her palms, smudged faintly with graphite. "That's why I never stop. If I do, I'll remember everything." Her voice trembled, and for a moment she looked impossibly young, a child carrying the weight of other people's forgotten pain. Halen wanted to tell her to stop, to let herself forget nothing, to be whole, even if it hurt, but the words caught in his throat. He realized he didn't have the right. That night, the school halls were dark and echoing. He stayed long after everyone left, standing by her desk again. On it lay a scrap of paper, another drawing. It showed the art room, empty, bathed in moonlight. Every detail perfect, except one. His own figure was missing from it. In its place was a faint, ghostly outline, half-drawn, half-erased. He touched the paper, and the graphite smudged beneath his fingertips, and for the briefest moment, he felt a weight lift from his chest, a sadness he couldn't name fading into calm dot. But when he tried to remember what had been weighing on him in the first place, there was nothing, just quiet, just forgetting. The next morning, Eliya didn't come to class. Her desk sat empty by the window, the light falling on her untouched brushes. Halen stood there for a long time, his hand resting on the back of her chair. He didn't know why he felt hollow, or why a faint sketch of a smile had appeared in the corner of his mind, drawn in lines he couldn't erase. Outside, the rain began again, soft and endless, and though he couldn't remember exactly what was missing, he knew deep down that something precious had been quietly taken away. The experiment The next day dawned pale and still, the kind of morning that carried the aftertaste of dreams. The sky outside was a flat wash of silver. Even the birds seemed hesitant to sing. Mr. Halen arrived at school before the janitor, coffee in hand, his footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor. He told himself he was early because of work, that he wanted to prepare the upcoming lesson. But he knew that wasn't true. He was waiting for her, Eliya, the girl who could erase memory with pencil and silence. He'd tried not to think about what had happened, the strange softening inside his mind, the sudden calm that had replaced something unnamed. But curiosity is a hunger that rarely sleeps. By dawn, it had eaten through his restraint. When she finally entered the classroom, a light drizzle followed her, drops clinging to her sleeves. She gave him a small nod, quiet as always. "Good morning," he said, trying to sound ordinary. "Good morning, Mr. Meyer," she replied. He hesitated, then gestured toward the window where the sky looked washed clean. "Do you have a moment before class begins?" She looked uncertain, but nodded. Of course. He guided her to his desk, where an old sketch pad waited beside a single graphite pencil. The room was silent, except for the slow ticking of the wall clock. "Eliya," he began carefully, "I want to understand what happens when you draw. I don't want to test you, only to see." Her expression was unreadable. "See what if your drawings truly change things?" She looked down, tracing her finger over the paper's texture. "They don't change the world," she murmured. "Just people, just what they carry." "Then let's carry something together," he said softly. She looked up, meeting his eyes for the first time that morning. "What should I draw?" He thought for a long moment, then said quietly, "My mother's garden." It was a memory he hadn't touched in years. Rows of roses and soft lavender. A worn white bench beneath a pear tree, the air thick with scent and summer bees. He could still picture it, though faintly now, like a photograph left too long in sunlight. Eliya hesitated. "If I draw it, it might not stay the same." "I know," he said, "but I want to see." She took the pencil. The sound of graphite against paper filled the room, delicate, deliberate, rhythmic. At first, she sketched the rough outline of the bench, then the curve of a path lined with stones. Her strokes were impossibly graceful. She drew not as if creating, but remembering. Halen watched in silence, his hands folded, his breath caught in some half-forgotten reverence. When she began shading the roses, something stirred in him, the faintest perfume, a ghost of scent that rose and vanished just as quickly. He could almost feel sunlight again, the warmth of his mother's presence somewhere behind him. But as the drawing took shape, he realized something strange. Eliya wasn't copying his memory, she was revealing it. Each petal looked exactly as he remembered, yet softer, truer, as though she were sketching not the garden itself, but the love that had once lived inside it. He felt tears press at the back of his eyes. "It's perfect," he whispered. Eliya didn't smile. Her hand hovered over the page. "Do you want to see what happens when I change it?" He hesitated, a flicker of fear, sharp and instinctive, but nodded. "Yes." She picked up the eraser. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, with infinite care, she brushed it across one of the roses. Just a petal, one soft curve of graphite, lightened, fading to nothing. The moment she did, Halen gasped. Something shifted inside his mind. Not pain, not even confusion, but absence. A quiet closing, like a door sealed gently behind him. He blinked. Do you feel it? She asked softly. He tried to speak, but words wouldn't come. He looked down at the drawing. The rose was missing a petal, incomplete. He searched his memory, willing it to return. The smell of that garden, the way his mother's hand smelled faintly of earth and sugar, but nothing came. The scent, once vivid, was gone. His voice cracked. I can't smell it anymore. The roses. Eliya's eyes widened in sorrow. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to make it disappear. I only wanted to show you. Halen gripped the edge of the desk, the world tilting around him. The absence wasn't painful, it was peaceful, and that frightened him more than anything. How long? He managed to ask. How long does it stay gone? Sometimes a moment, she said quietly. Sometimes forever. He turned away, pacing to the window, trying to steady his breath. Outside, the rain had begun again, fine, silvery threads crossing the glass. He remembered his mother's voice, her laughter, even her face, but not the scent of her roses. That small detail, that intimate anchor, was lost. It felt like losing her all over again. He looked back at Eliya. She sat perfectly still, pencil resting across her knees, eyes filled with guilt, far too old for her years. How long have you known you could do this? He asked. She looked down. Since I was little. It started when my father got sick. He used to tell me not to draw sad things. So one day, I erased the lines on his face. Her voice broke. And when I looked up, he smiled. He said he didn't feel tired anymore. He didn't remember he was dying. She pressed her palms together tightly. But the next morning, he forgot me. The silence that followed felt endless. Only the rain filled it. A soft, persistent rhythm, like the beating of a heart. Halen sat across from her, the weight of her words sinking deep. Eliya, he said finally, you're not erasing things. You're rewriting grief. You're giving people peace, even when they don't ask for it. She shook her head slowly. No, I'm taking what hurts, but I don't know where it goes. It never disappears. It just hides. Her eyes flicked up to meet his. Sometimes I dream of the things people forget. Their faces, their words, their pain, all mixed together. It's like a world made of things no one remembers anymore. Halen felt a chill run through him. And in that world, she continued softly, I see my father's garden. The roses are made of ash. The bell rang, sharp and sudden, breaking the spell. Students began filtering in, laughter spilling into the quiet. The spell of confession shattered instantly. Eliya turned the page in her sketchbook, her expression calm again, the practiced stillness of someone who knew how to hide in plain sight. But Halen couldn't, not anymore. He moved through the lesson distractedly, words tumbling out of habit. His mind kept circling the drawing on his desk, the half-finished garden, missing a single petal at the end of class. When everyone left, he sat alone, staring at it. He lifted the eraser, just to feel it, the small, ordinary weight of it. How could something so simple hold such power? He pressed it gently against the paper, erasing another petal. A faint whisper rippled through his thoughts, like a sigh fading into distance. He frowned, searching for what had changed. Then he realized he could no longer remember the color of his mother's eyes. He dropped the eraser. Enough, he whispered, enough. That night, at home, he set the drawing on his table beneath the lamplight. He couldn't stop staring at it. The paper seemed to hum faintly in the quiet, as if holding something alive within its lines. He tried to rewrite the missing petals from memory, but the pencil refused him. Each attempt ended in pale, empty smudges. Defeated, he leaned back in his chair, exhaustion spreading through him. For the first time in years, he wept, not from grief, but from the unbearable gentleness of forgetting. Outside, the rain stopped. The night was clear and cold. On his desk, the drawing of the garden shimmered faintly under the lamplight. And though he didn't notice, one petal, the one Eliya had erased, slowly reappeared, not drawn in graphite, but in light. The weight of forgetting. The rain had ended sometime before dawn, leaving the world rinsed and trembling. Halen's classroom smelled faintly of damp paper and chalk, the way forgotten rooms do after a storm. He opened the windows and let the cool air wander in, hoping it would clear the heaviness that had followed him through the night. The drawing still lay on his desk. He hadn't touched it again, though every part of him wanted to. The garden looked unchanged under morning light, delicate pencil lines, faintly smudged where tears had fallen, but he could no longer remember what color the roses had been. He stared at it until the first students began to drift in, laughing, calling, bumping desks into place. Their voices felt far away, like a language he'd once known. And then Eliya entered. She always arrived quietly, as if she were apologizing to the floor for stepping on it. Her sketchbook was pressed to her chest. Her gaze stayed fixed on the window. When class ended, Halen asked her to stay. She lingered by the window while the others left, her reflection trembling on the glass. Outside, the courtyard glimmered with puddles that caught small pieces of sky. "I can't stop thinking about yesterday," he said softly, "about what happened when you erased the rose." Eliya's shoulders tightened. "I shouldn't have done it." "No," he said gently. "I asked you to, but I think we both learned something important." She turned, her eyes a shade to calm. "That forgetting can be kind, that it can also cost us more than we think." For a long moment, neither spoke. Dust motes swam in the air between them, drifting through a beam of light. Finally, she said, "Do you know when I first found out?" Halen shook his head. She traced the edge of her sketchbook with her thumb. "It was years ago. My parents used to fight a lot, loud enough that the walls shook." Her voice didn't tremble, but it carried the fragile rhythm of someone reciting a memory. She'd rehearsed to survive it. "I would sit in my room and draw them," she continued. "Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know what else to do. I'd draw my mother's hands raised, my father's face twisted, the lamp between them that always flickered." Her eyes glistened faintly. "One night, I couldn't stand the noise anymore. So I erased his mouth, just rubbed it out with my thumb." She looked up at Halen, and the shouting stopped. Halen felt the air leave his lungs. "I thought I was dreaming," she said. "But when I looked through the door, they were standing there, staring at each other, silent. Their lips moved, but no sound came out." She clutched her sketchbook tighter. "After that, I erased more. The lamp, the room around them. sometimes the whole page. Her fingers trembled as she turned it over, showing the worn edges of paper, the faint ghost of old drawings beneath the new. I thought I was fixing things, making the world quieter. Her gaze dropped to the floor, but one morning I woke up and couldn't remember what my mother's smile looked like, or my father's voice. It's like someone cut pieces of them out of my head. The confession hung in the room like mist. Halen moved closer, speaking softly, as if approaching a frightened bird. Eliya, you're losing pieces of yourself because your memories are tied to theirs. Every time you erase them, you erase the part of you that knew them. She nodded once, lips pressed together. I know, but I can't stop. When people hurt, I want to help. When they cry, I draw. And when they look at my drawings, they forget the pain. They always thank me. They never see what it costs. He hesitated. And what does it cost? She looked down at her hands. Sometimes I wake up and don't remember what I was drawing for, or who asked me. Sometimes I feel hollow, like I'm made of erased lines. The words pierced him. Halen sat at the desk beside her, the same one where she'd drawn his mother's garden. Maybe, he said slowly, the problem isn't that you draw to erase, it's that you've never drawn to remember. Eliya frowned faintly. What do you mean? He opened a new sheet of paper and handed her the pencil. Let's try something different. Instead of erasing pain, what if you draw something you don't want to lose? She hesitated. Like what? Anything that matters to you, even if it's small. She stared at the blank page. For a moment, her hand didn't move. Then, tentatively, she began to draw. At first, it was only a Chopin certain. Then, slowly, a cat emerged, thin, scruffy, with a tail like a question mark. Halen smiled faintly. Is that yours? Eliya nodded. Her name was Miso. She used to sleep on my window ledge. I think she ran away during one of the storms. Her voice softened. Sometimes I still dream she's there. The pencil moved with new life. She shaded the fur, the tilt of its head, the quiet warmth in its eyes. There was tenderness in her lines now, something she hadn't allowed herself before. When she finished, she sat back, studying it. It feels different. Halen leaned closer. How? It doesn't take anything away, she said slowly. It gives something back. I can almost hear her purring again. Her smile flickered like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the next hour, they worked together. Halen guided her, gently teaching her to balance dark and light, to leave space instead of erasing it. Drawing, he said, isn't just capturing what's real. It's deciding what deserves to stay. Eliya listened closely. With every stroke, her breathing steadied. The classroom filled with the soft rhythm of pencil against paper like rain returning, but gentler this time. She drew her mother's hands, holding a cup of tea, her father's old wristwatch, a window half open to the night. Each drawing seemed to anchor something inside her when she stopped. Her face was pale but peaceful. I can see them again, she whispered. Not clearly, but they're there. Halen felt a swell of quiet relief. Then that's where we start. Over the next days, they met in secret after class. Sometimes they sat in silence. Sometimes he spoke softly about composition, memory, light. But mostly, he watched her heal. Her sketches changed. They were still strange, half-real, half-dream, but they no longer bled sorrow. They glowed with it. One afternoon, she handed him a new drawing. It showed his mother's garden, again whole this time, every petal intact. Not the same roses, but how they must have felt. He stared at it, throat tightening. Though he couldn't smell them, he suddenly remembered the warmth of his mother's laughter, the way she brushed soil from her palms. He whispered, "You brought it back." Eliya shook her head. "You did. I only showed you where to look." That night, Halen stayed late again. When the school emptied, he stood by the window, watching the first stars bloom over the rooftops. His reflection floated beside Eliya's drawing on the desk. He realized something simple, terrifying, and beautiful. Forgetting had weight. Remembering did too. But maybe, between the two, there was balance. He glanced at the empty chairs, at the papers scattered like fallen leaves. How many people, he murmured, would choose peace if they knew what it cost? Behind him, the faint rustle of paper answered a page turning on its own. He turned, startled. Eliya's sketchbook lay open, and on its newest page, a line of graphite letters shimmered faintly. "Don't forget me." The room fell utterly still. He reached for the sketchbook, fingertips brushing the edge. The words faded, replaced by a small drawing, a simple one. Two figures sitting side by side at a desk, one older, one young, a pencil between them. And though the lines were rough, he could feel the warmth in them, the trust, the fragile bond that had grown between teacher and student. He smiled, almost laughing through the ache in his chest. "I won't," he whispered. Outside, the night deepened into velvet quiet. The world smelled faintly of rain again, of beginnings. The next morning, Eliya arrived early. Her face looked rested, her eyes clearer. "I dreamed of miso," she said as she took her seat, "and of my parents. They weren't arguing. They were planting something." "What were they planting?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "Forget-me-nots." They both laughed quietly, and the sound felt like sunlight that day. Halen wrote a single line in his journal before locking the classroom door. To teach someone to remember what matters is the gentlest way to fight forgetting. And somewhere deep inside the pages of Eliya's sketchbook, a new world was forming, not one built of lost memories, but of the ones she chose to keep. The memory she shouldn't touch. The morning began quietly. A stillness hung over the school, too heavy, too deliberate, as if even the air understood something had gone wrong. The bell rang, but no one hurried to class. The usual chatter in the halls was gone. The echo of footsteps felt wrong somehow. Louder against the hush, Tosh Halen stood by the doorway of his classroom, watching his students file in one by one. Their faces were pale, their eyes rimmed with red. Someone had left flowers on a desk near the window, a small, trembling bouquet of white daisies. Eliya entered last. Her sketchbook was clutched tightly to her chest, her hands streaked faintly with charcoal. She didn't meet anyone's eyes. No one said a word. The news had spread early that morning. A student from the class next door, a quiet boy named Arlen, had been hit by a car on his way home the night before. He was gone before anyone could help him. Halen hadn't known him well, but he'd seen him often. The boy who always lingered after art class, who borrowed brushes he forgot to return, who smiled shyly whenever Eliya offered him spare paper. The loss carved through the school like a cold wind. By the second hour, no one could focus. Pencils lay untouched. Chalk squeaked once across the board before Halen stopped mid-word. The silence in the room pressed on his chest. He looked around, every desk, every bowed head, and saw the same question in every face. How do we go on pretending this day is ordinary? After class, Eliya stayed behind. She didn't ask permission. She just sat there, her small frame hunched over her desk, sketchbook open. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her hands were steady. Halen approached quietly. Eliya. She didn't look up. Her pencil moved in slow, trembling arcs. A face began to take shape. Soft lines, a half smile. Arlen's Halen felt a chill crawl up his spine. You're drawing him. I have to, she whispered. Everyone's hurting. You can feel it. The hallways, the air, everything. It's too heavy. I can fix it. He knelt beside her, his voice low. Not this time. She paused, her pencil hovering above the paper. Why? Because pain is part of love, he said softly. You can't erase one without losing the other. She finally looked at him then, and her eyes were shimmering pools of confusion and sorrow. But it hurts so much. I can take it away. I know I can. Eliya, he said, steady but gentle. Grief is what keeps us connected to what's gone. If you take it, there'll be nothing left to remember him by. Her hands trembled. Then maybe forgetting is kindness. He shook his head. No, it's silence. And silence isn't the same as peace. Her pencil lowered again, defiant. You don't understand. I do, he whispered. Better than you think. But if you do this, if you draw him and erase, you'll take away more than pain. You'll take away meaning. The pencil stopped moving. For a heartbeat, he thought she'd heard him. But then a single tear dropped onto the paper, dissolving the edge of a drawn line, and she began to draw faster. Charcoal streaked across the page, the dark shapes of memory twisting beneath her hand. The curve of a smile, the soft fall of hair, the outline of a school bag left behind. Eliya, please, his voice broke. Stop. But she didn't stop. Her breath quickened, her fingers smudged gray across the page. He shouldn't have to stay gone in everyone's mind, she whispered. He was kind, he was gentle. He shouldn't be remembered in pain. She drew harder, almost desperately, then flipped the pencil around and began to erase. The moment the eraser touched the paper, the light in the room dimmed. The sound around them folded in on itself. The hum of distant voices, the faint rustle of trees outside, vanishing one by one, as if the world were holding its breath. Halen's heart pounded. Eliya, but her eyes were closed now. Tears slid down her cheeks, darkened by dust. The drawing dissolved under her hands. The outline of Arlen's face blurred, smudged, and faded until only white remained. Then silence. A silence deeper than before. The next morning, the school was back to its ordinary rhythm. Students laughed in the hallways again. The desks looked brighter. The daisies were gone from the window. No one spoke of Arlen. No one even seemed to know that anything had happened. They joked, they studied, they planned for the weekend. And when Halen asked about the boy who sat by the window, they only blinked. Which boy, sir? Someone asked, polite and puzzled. He didn't answer. That afternoon, he walked to the art room alone. The sunlight streamed across the desks, dust dancing in the beams. On the wall hung a display of student drawings, landscapes, portraits, still life. One space was empty. The tag beneath it read a name he couldn't bring himself to say aloud. He reached out, fingertips brushing the blank spot where the picture should have been. The paper felt smooth, untouched. He closed his eyes, and then he felt it, a hollow space in his mind, the shape of something missing, not just a face, but the weight of a memory gone wrong. The echo of laughter he should remember, the sound of a pencil tapping on the desk, the small, quiet presence that once filled a corner of the classroom, gone that evening. He found Eliya waiting in the courtyard. The sky above her was streaked with violet, the kind of color that looks too tender to last. She sat beneath the old sycamore tree, sketchbook open in her lap. "I thought you'd be angry," she said when she saw him. He sat beside her, exhausted. "I'm not angry, I'm hollow." She nodded, eyes downcast. It worked. No one remembers him now, not even his friends. No one's crying anymore. And you? Her hands tightened around the book. "I can't remember his face. I tried to redraw it this morning, but the lines wouldn't stay." She looked at him, her voice small. Was that wrong? He turned to her. "Sometimes what hurts most is also what makes us human. Pain means we loved. You can't heal by pretending love didn't happen." Her lip trembled. "I wanted to help, I know," he whispered. "You did what you thought was kind. But kindness isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's standing with someone through pain, not taking it away." They sat there a long time, watching the last light sink behind the rooftops. "I can feel it," Halen murmured. "A space in the day where someone should have been. The memory's gone, but the shape of it remains." Eliya looked up. Maybe memories aren't the only thing that linger. Maybe the world remembers, even if we don't. He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I'd still rather remember and ache than forget and feel nothing." The air grew cooler. The first evening star appeared. "Promise me something," he said finally. She turned toward him. "If you ever draw again to erase," he said, "make sure you're not taking away something someone might need to hold on to." She nodded. "I promise." Before they parted, she tore a page from her sketchbook. On it was a single drawing, a simple, fragile flower. Not a rose this time, not something from memory, just a small, delicate bloom standing in empty space. "What's this?" he asked. Eliya smiled faintly. "Something to remind us that forgetting leaves room for something new to grow. But only if we choose to remember what was lost first." She handed it to him. When he looked down the pencil, lines shimmered softly, as if holding the echo of something unnamed. He slipped it into his journal, where he kept the fragments of her lessons and his own. That night, he dreamt of the empty desk by the window. A soft wind moved through the room, and for a moment, he thought he saw a boy sitting there, sketching quietly, smiling as if he'd been waiting. When Halen blinked, the vision was gone, but the faint scent of daisies lingered in the air. He whispered into the quiet, "I remember you, even if no one else does." And somewhere in the unseen spaces of memory, in erased lines, in silence, in light, the echo of that truth remained. The last sketch. The first snow came quietly that year. Not the kind that shouts its arrival, but the kind that falls in secret, a slow drifting of white. Like dust shaken from a forgotten dream, Halen watched it settle on the windowsill of his classroom, each flake catching the faint glow of the heater's orange light. The desks were empty now. Lessons were done for the term, and yet he couldn't bring himself to leave. The room felt different without her sketchbook on the front table, without the sound of graphite whispering across paper. Eliya hadn't come to class for 3 days. Her seat remained untouched, her last drawing pinned above it, a faint outline of a garden unfinished. It looked as if it had been erased by wind. He told himself she needed rest, but beneath that, a quieter knowing stirred, the kind that doesn't ask for proof. Something was ending. He found her in the art room that evening. The lamps were dim, the windows fogged, and the floor glittered faintly with powdered graphite. She sat by the largest desk, sketchbook open, surrounded by pages torn and scattered, drawings of people, places, memories, half-formed. When she heard him enter, she didn't turn. "I thought you'd come," he smiled gently. "You left enough clues." Eliya traced a finger along one of the sketches. "I keep trying to draw faces I've forgotten, but the more I try, the emptier the paper feels. Like it knows I'm not supposed to remember them." She looked up at him then, eyes tired but strangely peaceful. "I think it's time, Mr. Halen." He moved closer. "Time for what?" "For one last drawing." Her voice was soft, steady. "You once told me to draw what deserves to stay. I've decided that's me, but not the version that's always erasing things. I want to remember myself whole before I disappear inside the pages." A shiver passed through him. "Eliya," she smiled, the smallest, saddest smile. "You've taught me enough to know that forgetting isn't peace, but sometimes to be remembered, right? A part of you has to fade." Halen wanted to stop her, but he couldn't find the words. There was something sacred in the way she sat there, the lamplight folding around her like a soft halo, the snow reflected in her eyes. "So instead," he said quietly, "then draw." Eliya nodded. She opened her sketchbook to the last blank page. The paper was smooth, waiting. She held her pencil the way one might hold a promise, lightly, reverently. The first line curved like breath, then another and another. A figure began to appear, her own reflection, but calmer, eyes closed, shoulders free of weight. Around her, she drew a faint horizon, not of a place, but of light. Halen watched in silence. Each motion of her hand was graceful, unhurried. It felt like listening to music too soft to hear, only to feel. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. When she was done, she set the pencil down and looked at her creation. "She looks peaceful," Halen whispered. "It's the me I always wanted to be, the me that remembers without hurting." Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the eraser. "Eliya," Halen said, standing, voice cracking, "you don't have to." She looked at him with quiet certainty. "I'm not erasing her, just letting her fade enough to become real." The eraser touched the edge of the page. A faint shimmer passed through the air, delicate, silver, like starlight, disturbed. The outline of the drawing began to soften, fading inward, and as it did, so did she. Her skin shimmered in the lamplight. Her form wavered like reflection on rippling water. The air filled with the faint scent of charcoal and rain. Halen's throat tightened. "Eliya." She turned toward him, smiling gently. "Don't be afraid. you'll remember me, just not in the way you think." Her voice was almost a whisper now, thinner than breath. "I'll stay in the things you taught me, and maybe in the ones you still have to teach." She looked down at the fading sketch. "It's better this way. All I ever wanted was to stop taking memories away. Maybe I can give one back instead." Her outline grew fainter, edges dissolving into the air. "Thank you," she said, though her lips hardly moved, "for showing me that remembering can be kind." Halen reached out instinctively, but his hand met only light, a soft warmth like touching fog. Then she was gone. The chair remained, the sketchbook closed neatly upon it. The lamplight flickered once, then steadied. Outside, the snow fell faster, thick and soundless, covering the world in pale hush. He didn't open the sketchbook that night. He couldn't. He sat beside it for hours, watching the lamp burn lower, until dawn crept in through the window like a tired ghost. The snow outside had stopped when he finally gathered the courage. He opened the cover. Every page was there, every drawing, every half-erased memory, every quiet confession she'd left behind. And then he turned to the last page. It was blank, not untouched, blank in the way something once full becomes after it's given everything away. The paper shimmered faintly, a trace of graphite glittering like dust in morning light. He ran his fingers over it and felt warmth, a pulse almost. And in that moment, something inside him stirred, a memory not of words or faces, but of presence, of laughter in the rain, of a soft voice saying, "Remember what's worth keeping." He whispered into the stillness, "Thank you." In the days that followed, Halen didn't tell anyone what had happened. He locked the sketchbook in his desk, but sometimes, when he opened the drawer, he could swear the faint scent of charcoal drifted out, or the ghost of a pencil tapping once, twice, against wood. His students said the art room felt different, warmer, lighter somehow. Some swore they could hear pages turning when no one was there. Halen smiled each time and said nothing. Weeks later, during the first spring thaw, he carried the sketchbook to the courtyard where he and Eliya used to sit. The snow had melted into small pools that reflected the sky. He opened the book to the blank page and placed it on the bench. The wind turned the corners softly, as if curious. "You did it," he murmured. "You drew peace." He left the sketchbook there, knowing someone else would find it, another student, another soul who needed it. That evening, as he walked home beneath a sunset brushed in faint gold, he felt a presence beside him, not seen, not heard, but known. And for the first time in a long while, the ache in his chest felt gentle, not a wound anymore, a remembrance. He looked up at the fading sky. "Eliya," he whispered, "you were right." The clouds above shifted faintly, and for a heartbeat, he thought he saw a faint outline drawn in light, a girl smiling, sketchbook in hand. Then it was gone, leaving only the soft breath of wind that night. He wrote a single line in his journal: "Memory is not what we keep, it's what refuses to leave." Even when everything else fades, he closed the notebook and set his pen down beside her drawing of the flower, the one she'd given him long ago. Under the lamplight, the lines shimmered again, silver and alive. He smiled, and somewhere in graphite dust, in forgotten pages, in the quiet spaces between remembering and release, Eliya's last sketch continued to breathe. And now, dear dreamer, the story comes to a gentle pause. Let your body sink even deeper into comfort, your mind softening with each breath. The sketches are resting, the room is calm, and the night wraps you in quiet, peaceful warmth. Thank you for joining Whispers of the Night. May your dreams be gentle, your heart light, and your sleep calm. Good night, dear dreamer, until we meet again.